let us know when you're ready to kick off, and then I will start the presentation. And I'm timing it closely around 30 minutes, 30 close to 20-25 minutes.
Okay. Then question answer,
Yeah,
clarifications, then we'll conclude it.
absolutely. It's a lot of contents from what I know.
Okay.
So let's see where it goes.
Shall we start the session, sir?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. Zenifa,
Yes, ma'am.
we'll start the session, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. Good afternoon, distinguished guests, esteemed speakers, and respected faculty members. It is my pleasure to welcome you back as we continue our conference with the second keynote of the day. Our upcoming session will focus on a highly relevant topic, generative AI, and the importance of data governance, a critical issue in today's digital landscape. And now it's our pleasure to introduce our esteemed keynote speaker for today, Mr. Kavi Nithyanandam, sir, founder, not only timely but essential for organizations looking to thrive in an increasingly complex environment. Sir, the virtual stage is yours, sir.
Thank
Thank
you so much,
you.
Jennifer. And am I good to go? There's a
Sir?
little bit. Yeah. Am I good to go?
Yeah, yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, faculty members, participants, and the organizing committee, and of course, the Bhagya University as a whole. Thank you for the opportunity, and it's my pleasure, definitely giving a keynote speak on a topic that is really relevant and it is of key importance uh, to the overall increasingly complex and fluid landscape of AI at this point of time, and where there are a lot of challenges that we have to deal with rather than uh, the benefits that we are seeing. Because if the proper governance around data that actually produces the models and inferences and the outcomes, then definitely there is a lot of room for error and also misuse, if you will. And eventually, what will happen is that the trust in such technologies and innovations will be compromised and diluted, and that's not what we want. We would rather, and we would always prefer, a good governance around technologies that assure the consumers slash users or for an increased adoption. So I will quickly switch over to my presentation. I know that some of the contents that may be in the presentation uh, can be deep, and some of it also I will upfront, inform you that there is no one way to solve a problem, which I am a firm believer of. And in fact, my associates in my company always make fun of me when I use the word there is more than one way to skin a cat, uh, and which is true. And where and why I'm mentioning this here is because whatever methods uh, and technology stacks that I'm referring to here is not the only way. And there is one such, way of doing it. And I have tried generalizing it as much as possible, but uh, there is always the reality that there are other better ways or other similar ways that people may implement or adopt, or and also add their own unique flavor of their own solutions, or some specific industries and domains that may call for a different variant of what I'm presenting here. So I just want to use that as a cautionary note here. And with that, I'm going to switch over to my presentation and I'll walk you through. Uh, so let me start my presentation. Please let me know when you're able to see my screen, and then I will maximize it. Able to see my screen, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Oh, great. All right. So let me, before I jump in, I'll take maybe 30 seconds to introduce to what Jennifer said. Lantrasoft is the company that I have founded back in 1998, and eventually, the consulting model is something that I was not happy about, and I put a pause on it. I went to work for IBM for some time, and then my entrepreneurial skill always was in me, and I came back to rebranding my consulting organization as a solution provider and a managed service provider in 2012. And we are about 200 plus members, globally distributed. And of course, me being committed to community give back, I always wanted to give it back to the city that nurtured me through my crucial years, including what I'm doing right this minute in Coimbatore. And then I have uh, organizations spread across the United States and Manila, Philippines. We are an ISO certified organization, and we focus on AI, high performance computing, and data services for primarily the BFSI, which is the banking, financial services, and insurance, uh, healthcare, manufacturing, and selective technology domains. In this case, some of them could be purely on the need for a drastic change in computing methods, or some of the product landscapes that may change. We help them as well. Uh, and that's pretty much our organization per se, and I represent that company throughout this presentation as well. Uh, Key growths, we started with 2012, and we have specific cloud capabilities from 2012 to 17. And then, of course, as the data and IoT industrial IoT and IoT, Internet of Things, started gaining momentum and relevance, we focused, and we have our own solution platform that enables that, similar to a lot of other commercial softwares that may exist at this point of time. And then eventually to the high performance computing, GenAI, and machine learning solutions and services. Uh, as I mentioned earlier, it's a BFSIs, retail, healthcare, manufacturing, and other domains we serve. So let's go to the primary topic of the hour. What is GenAI? And throughout these 2 days or 1.5 days of your presentation / participations and keynote speakers, uh, you have come across the GenAI being referred. And what is it? Just to recap, I don't want to boil the ocean or beat the dead horse here, but a GenAI is basically a AI technology that basically defines a mechanism to generate text, image, code, or other types of contents that possibly will be used or presented to the users based on their prompts / questions they ask about, or use it to generate additional / derivative content thereof. So that's generally the purpose, and most of you are aware of it, whether you're using a chat GPT for fun of it, or it could be as simpler use case of asking devices, edge devices such as Siri and Alexa and so forth, increasingly. Or it could be a simple chatbot that you identify in your browser sessions the moment you log on to some specific sites, or now it's becoming more and more prevalent in every single site. Those are basically implementations of such things. And what drives and fuels such, it's basically the Gen AI implementations behind the scene. What are the different ways? One is creating new contents, Then second one is improving the efficiency and productivity is another use case slash you know applicability of this. Quality of the generated content, the more and more um refined, accurate, or focused, then the adherence to such will definitely be increasing. And then, of course, eventually, people slash applications slash institutions start using that to recreate or create derivative solutions uh, and consume it for their own application build out and so forth. Typically, a GenAI tech stack, as you all know, will start with users using the device or devices slash applications, business applications, so to speak, typically on Office 365 or Salesforce, where we have sales-related, activities that we perform, or could be a development organization using Copilot for some of their own development purposes, or content creations and application creations. Those are applications that typically start and then eventually interface with three different models that we typically use. Model hub, where there are hosting applications slash enterprises that provide you different models to uh, consume from or use on their platform. Then you have your open source, which are increasingly being adopted nowadays, which you can use yourself within your own data center, within your own laptop, so to speak, nowadays, with the computing powers being more powerful nowadays and more affordable uh, and portable. So it becomes a viable option. And then the third one is from a more on a source foundation models, where it becomes a more controlled activity, where you curate and then you produce certain results consuming and using those models. How do they all eventually realize or provided to the users and organizations? Typically it is all cloud platforms. Basically, you have different cloud providers such as IBM, AWS, Google, Azure, or Rackspace and DigitalOcean and so forth, or a number of other localized platforms that are available that allow you to uh, use some of their own offerings, or you house a third party application that you prefer or that aligns to your strategy and thought processes and preference, or you build out yourself and then host it in their cloud platform. Why do you have go to such cloud platforms? It's primarily a, a typical journey that any enterprise goes through, where what we call it as a buy versus build operations, where are you investing into building your own data center versus having a reliable cloud service provider that gives you an abundant resources that are unlimited as long as you need it, you plan it, and then of course you're able to afford it, basically. And then eventually, nowadays, as you all know, the whole buzz that NVIDIA has created, the hardware is also becoming more and more uh, relevant and efficient for providing really highly scalable and efficient, mechanism for running these models, so that a a computation is really fast and timely, and also the cost of operating is a little bit more meaningful nowadays. Which leads to, okay, now that we are talking about Gen AI overall, and then where does it take us to? Basically, you should have mechanism to implement them, and then how do you implement them? Typically, the practice and the discipline that really talks about is data sciences, that most of you know about, and within that practice, where AI and machine learning is a way for us to really facilitate such a curation, definition, and eventually the use slash adoption of such models, uh, where you have these metrics to monitor, or data preparations from the different data sources, basically, and then you go through the whole tuning process and validation slash testing process, so that you're using the right data, right assumptions, and the performance from a functional capability point of view. And then eventually you start baselining the models, so that you know that you have gone through the definition, execution, training, and validation, or slash validation and training. And then you baseline it, saying that, okay, this is what I'm going to be basing off of. And then eventually you start using it, and then you go through. It doesn't stop there, but the step one and step two, or the group one and group two, continue to evolve and continue to execute, while a baseline is consumed for your implementation purposes. And then when you arrive at a different slash improved baseline, then you switch it out to a different model when it is appropriate. And there are some mechanisms, methods, and protocols that we observe to switch over to a new model, and so on, because the new models may provide either improved performance, improved accuracy, or increased functionality, so to speak. So that's one of the ways. Second one is, one second. Okay. Just want to make sure if I had any notification, I was just checking it. The second one is feature engineering, as we call them. Feature engineering is also another process of selecting, extracting, and quote unquote, prepping the raw data into features that can be used for performance of the models. And it's similar process, but it's in slightly different in its own ways, where you have a business problem framing you do, basically, and then you map the data that is applicable to that particular business process, and then you apply the data visualization and analytics around it, and then go through the training, and then evaluate, and then deploy it. Where you're talking about raw data set, once again, these are all different methods, just to keep in mind and remind you. These are all different methods and ways that you curate the data, maintain the data, and use it for model definitions, model executions, and so forth. Now, having said those, now let's get to the gist of the topic here. We have seen all these, and most of you may have heard by this time a term typically used is garbage in, garbage out. What does it mean? Basically, when you supply uh, not so quality data, and then you let the models work on it and come up with your outputs, the quality of output is going to be directly related slash correlated to the quality of data that you have provided. And not only the quality of output, but there are instances that we constantly are challenged with and question nowadays, increasingly actually, as a matter of fact, is what type of data is funneled through to train your models that actually gives you output that I can trust. So the trust is very crucial nowadays, basically. And that's why the AI itself, or capabilities of large data sets and so forth, is great, but it is not purely just AI. The whole mindset is increasingly becoming, is it traceable, is it compliant, and can I trust it? I think that is where the whole industry has moved. And how do you do it? Basically, what is the underpinning and the undercurrent of the entire thing? It's basically data. Data fuels everything. And how do you manage the data? And that's why the data governance becomes a crucial component. And why? because you have many large language models basically use the data to train the models to give you some inferences and outputs based on you asking some simple questions to providing uh, inferent inference data that you can trust or consume and move forward with and make some decisions on, um, or influence certain outcomes and so forth. It may not be just consuming just the output, but it can influence other downstream decision makings or actions and so forth. And those are the reasons why the data governance becomes a very crucial component. And when you have such a governance need, what are the different aspects of the data that we are really needing to recognize the governance around? One is the discoverability of the data. Second, of course, increasingly, as you all know, the privacy of the data, whether my private data is being used, and even if it is being used, do I have the right permissions that are being granted at my will? When I say my, it can be an individual, it can be an institution, it can be an ecosystem, whatever, or it could be a simple system as well. Or some people may anonymize the data, or what we call it as obfuscation. We can do that and then provide a more generalized and not personally identifiable data. And then you always enrich the data. How do you enrich the data? You have baselines, and then you have different systems that augment and enrich the data. And then quality of the data, which is always a factor. And then vector store governance is more technical term, because in a in a GenAI models or any LLMs, the way we basically store and provide augmentation to conversations, workflows, chatbots, and what have you, you have something called as a vector that actually creates name value pair lookups and question and answer kind of a mechanism. That becomes also crucial, where maybe you have the good source of data, good curation of the data, good model, but then if the vector governance is not there, or if the vector governance is not secured properly, then you're running into another issue there, whether it's a data leak or privacy uh, or the uh, right to use or know about the data becomes an issue. And then the entire user response, request response workflow, that is also a factor of how you, or it's not a factor, it's another aspect that we need to consider in the governance process, basically. Typically, you may have seen this, or just to give you a visual for some of you, typically you start with the prompt user in a GenAI systems. You extract keywords from the prompt, and then you extract the entire enterprise data that relate to such, and then you go to the data source where it is enabled through APIs or a typical system lookup or data lakes that would provide such information. And then, in addition, based on these, automatically the LLM also learns from it. And then, as I said, the vector stores updates them or keeps them current and relevant. And then those eventually become the augmentation from then on, basically. So it's a cycle. So this is the use case review that we typically use in any development and implementation of LLMs in a GenAI scenario. How does it really get implemented from a user request and response flow? This gives you the flow of where you input the prompt, then generate the query. If it is a structured data, if it is a unstructured data, then you go through the search process. And then, of course, enforcing the permissions is always crucial. And then look for the semantic searches using the vector data that you have developed / constantly enrich, and then apply situational context, user prompts, and semantic contexts which are relevant, and that are being funneled into the LLMs that actually give you the response. And now this flow tells you as to why data is the underpinning element, where the LLMs become crucial, how you curate them and then define the vector stores. Everywhere, the data is crucial. And unless and otherwise you have control over the data, then the trust quality of output that the user will receive can be compromised, or it becomes diluted in terms of uh, quality. How do you establish a governance model? Overall, four steps that we typically adopt. One is from the discoverability of the data, which I told you in the beginning. The second is defining certain rules and categories and controls. And then the third one, implement such rule definitions and workflows that curate the data and basically apply all the risk mitigation so that your decision makings and quality are enforced, and then eventually manage and monitor, because once you start it, it becomes an ongoing process. It's not like one time you do it and deploy it and forget about it, whereas it's a discover, define, apply, monitor, and then goes in cycles. Basically, that's overall process. And taking that process and getting into the individual qualities, that pipeline that I was talking about, how does it translate to real implementations? You're talking about operational models, you're talking about data platform itself, the governance, which I talked about, quality, privacy and compliance, lifecycle, analytics and insights. All these are the pillars. And then, of course, with all these being more focused on specific areas, the overall literacy and the engagement of the associates or the community that actually works with the data is very crucial in any organization. Without these two foundational uh, uh, adoption slash commitment, you're not going to enable any of these. So any successful organization, literacy and employee engagement slash leadership or otherwise, you cannot, or these elements can be compromised. And that's what we typically use for assessments. And we start focusing on what are the different areas where we need improvement, or we need to define certain guardrails or models and start improving thereupon. And again, it's also a journey. It's not like a flip of a switch where you come in, you do it, and tomorrow it's there. It can take months to years to achieve iterative and incremental quality improvement in such things. Again, what are the different aspects of data are we talking about? Data dimensions, basically in terms of warehouse, security, privacy, access management, catalogs, and engineering pipeline of the observability, and then the master data management and analytics, or the 8 different categories that we typically slice and view the data with. Which eventually, when you start doing that, you start curating and developing a set of products. When I say products, basically versions of data that are consumable within the organization or outside the organization. And that's what starts feeding into your large language models, or it could be simple enterprise warehouse queries for external customers or internal office consumptions. Basically, how do you typically do it? Technology wise, I'm shifting from a requirement slash definition to how do you enable it. From left to right, you start with the source of data, you curate the or you secure the data second, and then you define some taxonomy and models and categories, and then after that you define foundational models around that, which eventually is consumed by the internal parties or external parties accordingly. And each one basically goes through its own journey. Another important factor is once you start defining those elements, then you're talking about the master data management of these, data that you define as golden images, because those become a foundation that you rely on throughout the enterprise. Again, these are all some of these topics could be very advanced for some of you, because it may sound too theoretical for you, but I can deep dive into later if there are opportunities. I just want to walk you through quickly, given the time that I'm just checking right now. Uh, the After the master data management, you have something called as the enterprise data management that you apply as well, where the whole operational element of it, and then the application data being curated to making it available for downstream systems is another set of applications slash methods slash uh, algorithms that we use, and also use some technology solutions that we use to enable such. Lastly, the observability is basically, okay, now that you have defined everything, you put it in operations, but you need to monitor them, you need to constantly keep a check on them, and then improve them for uh, any anomalies or improvements or any missing elements of it, and so forth. This is again, privacy engineering is another view slash lens that we look through, and you define, okay, what is the privacy, for whom is it going to be defined, why is that, and then how are we going to do it. So these are another lens through which, for specific use cases, that we adopt for ensuring that the data curation process, data provisioning process, goes through its journey of validation and definition of the quality of data, basically. Typically, in any organization, this is not the only way to do it, but typically in any organization, this is what you see in a way you define data strategy to data governance, whether it is going to be for AI and ML, or even in enterprise data warehouses and enterprise data situations. We typically adopt ingestion, storage, processing, and analytics. Those are four different stages through which we enforce and implement data governance and data strategy, if you will. Okay. And just lastly, a simple use case definition of how it applies to, from a consumer point of view slash a industry domain point of view. You're talking about data governance roles, policies, processes, controls, and then eventually the enablers, which are the tools that give you its own specific outcomes, or it enables certain processes and methods for achieving or implementing processes and controls. So that concludes it. And I know some of it may have been kind of coming out of a fire hose for some of you, but I'm just going to pause and take a few questions if there are any. Otherwise, I can definitely follow through with this for additional deeper dives as appropriate. Dr. Chandra or Purkadi?
Sir, thank you, sir. Your session is very informative. Just I would like to know when we integrate, because as you are in data governance, for any particular domain, for research purpose and all, we are we are getting data, we are manipulating data from different sources, different web servers or different sources. So all these sources may be differentiated with minor attributes, or same attributes may be referred in some other source in a different way. So when this is the case, how the data integrations can be carried out in industry aspects, sir? What kind of model, data integration model or ETL model they are using for data integration?
Yeah, very good question. Actually, that is one of the crucial elements, and that's why I had actually talked about these three specific topics, where data mesh is basically typically some people call it as data mesh, some people call it as data fabric, depending on certain brand names. They may have used their own uh, uh, you know terminologies, but end of the day, they all, as you rightfully pointed out, source of records come in, you curate the data, and then you establish the taxonomy of the data. I think that is where the crucial component comes in, where you're categorizing them and establishing them under taxonomy is one of the important steps. And how is it enabled? As you rightfully said, the ETL is one of the widely adopted mechanisms for such curation and categorization, and that's what we use. And when you talked about different sources and we are talking about the same data, and this is where the master data becomes a very crucial component, basically. And MDM is not a, of course, the product companies always say we have an MDM to offer to you. But fact of the matter is, master data management is a discipline, practice, and methods that you establish within an organization for defining rules for how to categorize them, how to create a golden image of a data. That's what it comes down to. And then once that is done, then you baseline it and then make it available for different internal parties or outside parties to consume, because then it becomes the trusted source for that particular data. For example, if you're talking about client, sorry, not client, consumer slash deposits or loans, for instance, I'm just using an example, then its own master data repository will be the single truth for your organization to refer to.
Sir, can you share what are the softwares they are using for modeling the semantic data? Actually, certain companies and all for data integration, they are using ontologies.
Correct. But ontology, again, ontology is like taxonomy. It is what you define to suit. And of course, you have some uh, generalized or a generic ontology that you can base off of, and you tailor it to what your specific need is. But it's all about a framework that you use that suits your industry slash applicability of a subset of that for you. I wouldn't, I personally don't say ontology is, I just take it and use it. I use that as my guiding principle and then eventually tailor it to what I need. But of course, you will go through your own applicability and vetting process internally to adopt that ontology for yourself.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions?
Jennifer, if anybody would like to ask questions, you can tell them to ask.
Participants, any questions?
So I have a question.
Sure.
As a part of data discovery,
Mhm.
how is it recommended to do a EDA or exploratory data analysis using tools like YData and the Great Expectations? So there are a lot of tools that give insight about the data, because in an enterprise, let's assume we do a ETL and have a raw data at the stage. Now, we know that there is a great data divide where data are siloed, or they are spread across different data segments. So how do we ensure that we build the MDM? So the next step is the MDM. is it recommended to build a MDM, or do we need to have multiple layers to actually reach to a MDM? Because larger organizations have terabytes of data, and they keep accumulating terabytes of data. So how is it recommended, or how the approach is?
Yes. Again, very quality question there, and defining an MDM or slash maturity model, arriving at an MDM, is an iterative process. As I said, I think I mentioned this during my talk itself, that it's not going to be flip off a switch. It is going to take multiple iterations before an organization slash entity even can define its own MDM. MDM will be an eventual step depending on the maturity within the organization. So it is a journey. It is a journey for sure.
So one more question.
Mhm.
Using language models and GPUs
Mhm.
are having a very large, carbon footprint, right? So
Yes.
we, using a lot of AI or GPUs actually has an effect. So how is it recommended, or how optimally we can use the GPU? Because CDU usage is more less uh, uh, carbon footprint as well, and inferences also has a lesser footprint. So how what is the best mechanism, or is there a model that we could adopt to ensure that the footprint is lesser, and we don't continuously hog the GPU, and continuously consume while using the language models or building AI specific solutions?
Excellent. In fact, the industry is already moving to in that direction with the same challenge that you just pointed out, which is the carbon footprint to increasingly demanding energy sources to computational power and whatnot. In fact, there is a topic and meme going around about Sam asking for exorbitant amount of computing power to go with this AI journey and Chat GPT and so forth, where a lot of environmental and computational experts raising their own concerns as to, is it even necessary, or are there better ways to do it? And that's a very valid question. And one of my views on it particularly is that it need not be always a LLMs. In my viewpoint, in fact, the industries are starting to adopt already smaller language models, in my viewpoint, which are more focused on, I don't need to know uh, what a particular for example, I'm a golfer, so I always gravitate towards referring to Tiger Woods. So I don't need to know what Tiger Woods did on in the year 1996 and how he played Masters. For me, I'm more interested in a specific set of use cases slash data inferences for my insurance domain. So it is becoming more localized, and smaller language models are being defined slash derived, and that is actually going to help manage uh, some of the high demand of computing power that we will need, because I don't need to be solving for a sports industry if I'm not in that space, basically, and it's becoming more localized. I hope that answers some of your questions.
Absolutely. And my final question, sir, is data breaches happen when data is being exposed, or when ETL is being done, or they are given for testing, and so forth. One
Yeah.
of the method is synthetic data. Is there any other methods, or is synthetic data is the only method to avoid, or overcome the breach problems when the data is within internal teams sharing across?
Good, very good, relevant question again. Synthetic data is one, and second is uh, basically anonymizing the data as well. There's another method that we can use where you remove personally identifiable or crucial components, and then you what we call as obfuscation. We can adopt that method as well as one of the alternative ways to provide that.
Thank you very much, sir.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Sir, good afternoon, sir.
Hi.
Sir, I have one doubt.
Sure.
What is the difference between the generative AI and discriminative AI?
Yeah, but to be honest with you, I don't want to wing it, and I don't want to answer that. I don't know. If I have to just make a guess out of it, it'll be more of a having a intention towards a hopeful outcome would be the second one that you just mentioned, is my guess. I don't know. I do not know for sure.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yep, absolutely.
So I have one question, sir.
Hi.
Sir, as a students, what are the tools we supposed to learn for data semantics, sir? And is there any specific tools for data semantics, sir?
I don't think, in my viewpoint, once again, my approach is slightly different as an organizational leader, as well as my own journey through these years. I don't particularly am fixated on tool sets, although at some point you will have to pick a tool and use it. But I would be more focused on methods and principles and practices than tool itself, because tool can be always replaced with something else. But more like the foundational concepts, methods, and algorithms, those are the things that I would focus on. That'll be my recommendation. Because one of the key challenges that I face within my own organization, and Dr. Chandra and others, and particularly Dr. Sudamani, who was yesterday giving talk on, they had emphasized data structure so much back in those years. And that lays the foundation for me, particularly understanding the data structures, and different methods of processing the data, and so forth. Then tool becomes one of the derivatives of that. Did I miss something here?
Jennifer,
It's silent.
if there is no questions, I think we'll come to your concluding remarks.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you very much, sir, for an absolutely enlightening and thought-provoking keynote on the crucial topic of generative AI and the importance of data governance. Your comprehensive insights have truly deepened our understanding of this dynamic and increasingly relevant field. You have highlighted the critical role of data governance that plays in shaping the future of AI, emphasizing how responsible frameworks are essential to not only unlocking the potential of generative AI, but also ensuring that it is used ethically, transparently, and securely. Your thoughtful approach to balancing innovation with the pressing need for data integrity and compliance has provided with a clear roadmap on how to navigate the complex landscape of AI in a way that fosters both growth and accountability. In particular, your discussion on the need of governance and the key changes in data pipeline was especially impactful. Your knowledge on MDM and LLM was very much enlightened, and it just enlightened our mind. The examples you shared with us, and the examples you provided with real life illustrations of how data governance and innovation was very much useful and informative. We truly appreciate your willingness to share your knowledge and vision with us today. Your contributions to the field are not only transforming industries but also setting new standards for responsible AI implementation worldwide. We feel privileged to have learned from you, and your keynote has undoubtedly left us with valuable insights that will influence our work going forward. Thank you once again, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity as well. And Dr. Chandra, Dr. Bakri, and the Department of Computer Science, it's been a pleasure as always.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a good
Good
day,
luck
sir.
with all the participants and the rest of your presentations and the function. So
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
I will see you in maybe a couple of months at the department when I visit. Okay.
Please do visit to the department, sir.
Absolutely, I'll let you know once my
Thank you,
travel
sir.
plan comes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you all participants.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
As we conclude the second day of ICAC conference, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to all the presenters and keynote speakers for their invaluable contributions and insightful discussions. A special thanks to the organizing committee and technical team for their seamless coordination. To our attendees, your active participation made this event a resounding success. May the connections and ideas shared continue to inspire the fruitful collaborations. Thank you all, and I look forward to see you at future events. Thank you.